Welcome everyone to Story Hour. My name is Fluffy Misery, and I'm filling in for Fluffy Temper tonight. Now you might be wondering where all the Fluffies came from. Fluffy is actually the name given to somebody when they join our guild. Our guild collects stories and fills a massive library with those stories. We write them down in a magical book that every Fluffy has a copy of. When we write something in this book, the words are transferred to the master book and get sent to the library. These stories are cataloged and protected by all the Fluffies long dead. Their spirits are tasked with guarding our tales. The library is currently in hell because Mistopheles, the eighth lord of hell, stole it, but that's a story for another day. I've always had a fondness for stories. Even before I joined the Fluffies, I was a collector of stories. A bard, if you will, but not the singing in the tavern kind of bard. I'm more of a tell you a scary story, kill the bad guy and wear his face and pretend I'm him kind of bard. I'm currently in hell with the library. Don't worry, Mistopheles can't get in. Only dead Fluffies can enter the library. I'm currently following the stories of 7 adventurers and their story master as they travel through their world. Tonight, we will begin the tale of Storymaster Huck, as his group of adventurers begin their stories into greatness or ultimate defeat. So, grab your mead, sit back, find your dice, and let me tell you a story. Roll a d20 and give me a constitution save. Down the worries of the day before heading to their homes. Ale in their tired bellies keeps the noise in the tavern to a dull murmur. At one table sits a small group, looking a bit out of place from the normal crowd that frequents the tavern. A squat creature of aquatic origins, with scales of a pale shimmery blue and green, is dressed in fine clothes that look more worn than fine clothes should, and goes by the name of Dougal-on-Foot, or Doog for short. They stand at their spot at the table, cloak open to display small bits of string, buttons, a wooden toy turtle, and other odds and ends. They are clearly trying to sell the others this random assortment of loot. The others, Nicola, a wooden mechanical man with a straw hat, Uma, a beautiful owl person with black and brown feathers, Craxus, the mysterious paladin who keeps his face hidden, and a small goblin named Gup, who has a mysterious presence about him. They watch on with amusement. See, these are the finest collectibles in the world. I've traveled far and wide to collect them, at great danger to myself, the fish creature proclaims. Roll me a d20. Make it a perception check. No, make it an insight check. Do you have any birds? Nicola, the machine man, always had a thing for birds. As he's speaking, his eyes start to wander to the flighted creature sitting next to him. No birds, my fine gentleman, but as soon as I come by some, you'll be the first to know, Duke replies, pointing his finger aggressively toward the machine man. So, where is everyone headed? I've heard about a big contest in Jigao, and I'm headed over to see if I can make some coin, Craxus says. Doog, still standing, starts waving their arms around to emphasize their excitement. Ah, the great games! I've lived in Chicago for many years. The coin is good if you have the skill, and if you don't have the skill, you just need a good team. There are many contests within the game, and for every contest you win, you get a medal, and the teams with the most medals at the end go on to compete in one final contest. That's the one that has the biggest prize. With a final throw of their hands in the air, Duke slams their hands on the table and finally sits down. Maybe if we all join the same team, we can get to the final prize, Buma suggests. A bird, a fish, a warrior, a wooden man, and a goblin. We don't look like the type of group that will win any prizes, Gup says sullenly. I think Buma could win a prize. Nicholas stares at the owl with an intense look of longing. Brushing off the stare, Buma collects their things from the table. Let's give it a shot. We don't even know what type of games there are. Let me back here in the morning. We can head out together. Duke jumps up excitedly and ushers everyone out of the tavern and over to the local inn. Roll me a d20 and give me an insight check. The evening was uneventful except for a whisper in Craxus's room, a voice that can only be described as a soft blue light twitched in his ear as he slept. In the morning, the four gathered together at the Midnight Tavern and set out toward Jagao. The adventurers had a remarkably uneventful trip as they made their way. They had plans to stop in the town of Urzin before completing their journey to Jagao the following day. As they approached Urzin, they see that it sits on a massive turtle. The turtle has a small town on its massive back, and a goblin sits on a covered platform on the turtle's long neck. Ropes trail from the turtle's gargantuan face to the platform, forming reins to guide the turtle. One goblin stands at the turtle's face, feeding it greens from a wagon. On the turtle's side, the walls of the town gently curve and meet in an obviously locked gate. Four well-armored orc guards stand at the ready, protecting the gate. Booma sees the turtle munching happily on its green and is looking concerned. Do you think that turtle is happy having to wear a city on its back? Always eager to please its feathered friend, Nicola hurriedly replies, "We should go ask," and starts to head over to the turtle's face. Do you know how to speak to it? As a druid, I know all the animal speaking spells. It should be easy to make sure this beautiful turtle isn't being harmed. Booma heads after the wooden man. Doog, wondering if the goblins had a food supplier for the massive animal, follows the two quickly and eagerly. Gub and Craxus, having no interest in the turtle, face the four arc guards on their own. Roll a d20 and give me a perception check. Two guards approach the two adventurers as they walk to the gate. Halt! Urzin is closed, one of the guards declares. The second guard looks over Gub and Craxus. Your kind are not welcome here. These gates will never open for you. He glares at Craxus in disgust and fingers his great axe. Who are you to tell me if I'm welcome here or not? Craxus puffs out his chest and takes a step forward, hand on his sword hilt. I see you, follower of the Lexon. You stink of death and decay. You failed to die and take new form like you were meant to, and now you stand here spreading your stink at my city gates. The guard spits in disgust. Leave this place. You will find no welcome here. Gub looks at Craxus with surprise. What do they have against you? Craxus removes his helmet and reveals the sunken face of a lion, rot beginning to form at the corners of his lips, his mane of hair tangled and dull. When you die in Lexon tradition, your soul is cursed to leave your body and enter a new one, forgetting all the memories and connections you made in that life, and then you start again. Unless you choose to stay in your body instead, joining the new one. Then you wake up, and your gods abandon you, and no one will speak your name. Craxus pulls his sword from his sheath and begins to walk closer to the approaching guards. Anger was clearly visible in his sunken eyes. This isn't going to be good, Gub sighs, pulling out his bow, and backs away slowly as he waves his arms and tries to get the rest of the group to look over. Roll me a d20 and give me a perception check. At the other end of the massive turtle, Nicola approaches the turtle's head and yells, "Are you okay up there? Can you speak?" The turtle does not stop eating, but the goblins respond in Goblin, and none of the adventurers present seem to speak Goblin. I know it's a little early to ask again, but roll a d20 and give me a perception check. Booma puts yes in her mind. The turtle stops eating, glances at her with one lazy eye, and responds from the deep, in the deep recesses of Booma's mind. Help, Balbara! He says he needs help, Booma yells at the rest of the group. What horrible things are they doing to you, Balbara? She once again speaks with the turtle. Balbara needs help, the turtle says again, this time out loud, in a slow, gravelly voice, and in Goblin, the language that has been translated for Booma through the spell. We are going to have to get this city off his back. Who's going to help me? Booma draws her sword and begins to advance on the goblins. I'll help save the turtle, declares Nicola, drawing his sword and advancing with Booma. The goblin handlers are looking worried as the party advances and start frantically yelling in Goblin. His name isn't Balbara. He's not in any danger. He's talking about his friend. Duke casually approaches his two friends and says, I don't think the turtle's name is Balbara. Our large friend here seems to be worried about his friend named Balbara. Did you see what happened there? Roll a d20 and give me a perception check. Oh, is that right, my turtle friend? Is your friend in danger? Booma asked. Yes, help Balbara, the turtle replies. Duke turns to the goblin handlers after making sure his friends are no longer on the attack. Who is Balbara? And do you have a food supplier for this beautiful beast? The goblin, still on edge, but looking a little relieved, respond, Balbara is a great sorcerer who lives in town. She was kidnapped a few days ago. We don't know who took her. But the guards at the gate, they know more. So, how about that feed vendor? Duke prompts. We just gather the food when we travel. We don't ever pay for it, the goblins reply. You sure look like you use a lot of rolls. I have a lovely assortment in my pack. Maybe I can interest you in some. We don't need any rope right now. Maybe later. The goblins turn to continue their work, keeping a close eye on the group. Should we go talk to the guards at the gate? Booma suggested. We probably should, and then we can help the turtle, Nicola added. We should probably figure out why Gov is waving his hands frantically at us. Duke pointed in the direction of the other half of their party and starts walking in their general direction, using his trident as a walking cane on the rocky terrain. Booma and Nicola rush after Duke. Seeing the weapons drawn, they prepare for what they can only assume will be a deadly skirmish for the new adventurers. Duke approaches the guards. Kind gentlemen, I see you have been beautifully kept armor. Have you tried using Rust Begone? It's guaranteed to keep your armor looking as beautiful as the day it was crafted. I've got some in my bag here. They start rummaging through their bags and tossing out odds and ends. None of you come any closer. He is not welcome here. And if he's with you, you're not welcome either. The guard flicks his chin at Craxus. Now, good sir, we have come offering our services. I have this fine salesman selling a wax for your armor. And we have our services as adventurers. I hear you have a kidnapping problem. Why don't you kindly, sir, put the swords away, and we'll see how we can help each other, said Booma. Pull out that d20 and give me an insight check. Balbara? Yes, she was kidnapped. It happened the other night. We think she was taken to the swamps, into that mess of a magical storm over there. If you could find her and bring her back, we'll ignore this infraction. Glaring at Craxus, the guards puts his sword away. Let me take you up to the tower. It'll give you a better idea of the direction we think they took her. The guard waves at the two guards at the gate, and they open the large wooden doors, letting the party into the town. I don't really do heights, Duke said as they gathered their belongings back into their bags. But those fine gentlemen look like they could use some string to tie back their hair. They rush over to a group of guards standing by the gates, getting ready their sales pitch. I'd love to go up. I bet I could see some birds up there. Nicola excitedly rushed to the tower steps. I'll go too. I can see a great distance. Booma heads toward the steps and follows Nicola up. The guards keep an eye on Craxus as he approaches the gates with Gub. You've come far enough. They use their spears to block his path to the gates. We'll just stay here, Craxus, Gub says. Let's get our gear ready for traveling. Begrudgingly, Craxus follows Gub's lead, and they begin to prepare their belongings for a trip across the swamp. Booma and Nicola get to the top of the tower with the guard. Nicola is scanning the sky for birds, and Booma is looking to the horizon and watching a storm of blue and black clouds throw brilliant blue and white lightning from angry skies. I take it that's where they took her? Booma asked the guard. We believe so. That storm popped up right around the time she was taken. It doesn't move. We assume it's magical. The guard nods his head in agreement with himself. That's going to be a long trip, Booma said. We'd better get going. Booma heads down the stairs, and Nicholas stays for a moment longer, searching the horizon for bird sightings. He gleefully sees a flock of sparrows and watches them for a moment before heading down the stairs with a joyful skip in his step. Meeting up with the rest of the group, Booma says, Well, I saw what looks like a horrifying storm that hasn't moved in days. Apparently that's the direction we're supposed to go. Are we ready to head out? I'm almost done here, Duke says as they finish some minor transactions with the guards at the gate. Yeah, let's get out of here, Craxus rumbles, putting his helmet back on. The group heads out in the direction of the storm and enters the marsh. The landscape here changes from dry grasses to wet bogs. Sticky mud makes the adventurers' step slow as it grabs at their boots and tries to hold them in place. The air is sticky with the smell of rot, and the plants are covered with a slime that coats the group's clothing. Yuck, Booma said as they trudged through the mud. This is never going to come off my feathers. They start attempting to brush the mud and goo off of themselves. I'll help when we stop for the evening, Duke says. I know just what you need. I will help you too. Nicola reached out his hand almost to touch the mud-covered feathers. I think Duke will be enough, Booma says as they pull away from Nicola's hand. If you change your mind, I'll be more than happy to help. Nicola puts his hand down and continues walking forward. As the adventurers make their way through the swamp, evening quickly approaches. As the sun begins to dip, they find a small clearing and set up camp. They get a fire going and lay their bedrolls out over whatever mostly dry debris they can find. Duke sits Booma down and starts licking their hands and wiping the mud from Booma's feathers. The fish saliva made quick work of the mud and goo that Booma had collected throughout the day. Nicola watches from across the fire, chin on his hands, elbows on his knees, fascination clear on his face. Thank you, Booma says to Duke, admiring the fish's work. Not a problem, my feather friend. Duke finishes up the last of Booma's feathers and they stand up and pull 50 feet of hempen rope from their pack. Now, I don't want to wander too far for tonight. Do you mind holding on to the other end of my... Gub and Craxus nod sleepily, their muscles sore from the long day pulling their legs from the mud and hop into their bedrolls. Give me a perception check. As the evening turns to night, Nicola stops his tinkering. He noticed his seat on the fallen log is a little lower than it was a few minutes ago. What? He stands up and looks at the sleeping party. Their bedrolls are slowly being devoured by the surrounding mud. Get up! Get up! He screams, rushing to shake the sleepers awake. What? Gub says, sleepily blinking his eyes. We're sinking! Nicholas screams. The group force themselves awake and try to gather their belongings. They manage to grab a few items before the mud pulls the remaining odds and ends under. My sword! Craxus exclaims and dives into the mud. And his quickly sinking sword. Craxus, wait! Booma screams and flies above the kicking legs sticking out of the mud. They grab onto the feet and pull with all their might. You stupid man! At least let us put a rope around you first! The rest of the group frantically tries to find long sticks to help pull him out. Nicola is trying to make a lasso with some rope. Everyone is screaming and rushing about. With one final pull, Booma manages to unstick the now very muddy Crexus, who is holding on to what appears to be a very, very muddy sword. You're an idiot, Gub says to the mud-covered Leland. But I got my sword. Crexus shrugs and starts trying to push some of the thicker mud off of his body. I'm glad you woke us up. Being buried in mud would not have been a nice way to wake up, Gub says. Nicholas shakes his head. I'm glad I noticed. We could have been lost. We could have lost everything. Booma cocks her head, hearing sounds of something edible off in the distance. Momentarily distracted, their rumbly belly demands something small, fresh, and fuzzy. Much appreciation, my fine man. Duke starts, but is interrupted as Booma takes off into the sky. The rope is still attached to their waist and attached to Duke's feet. As Booma gains altitude, Duke is knocked to the ground and pulled feet first into the air. Hanging feet up and dangling from the now flying Booma. Give me an insight check. With impressive skill and a lot of luck, Duke manages to avoid trees, bushes, and other dangers as they are pulled into the air. The rest of the party can hear Duke's faint screams as they demand Booma bring them back to the ground. Booma doesn't seem to hear and continues their search for food. Booma is scanning the ground for the meal they heard, and they spot it, off to the left. It's a small bunny trying to hide in the bushes. They dive. Duke feels the rope give slack and begins to fall as the owlin changes direction. What? No, no! They scream as they see the ground quickly approaching. They attempt to climb up the rope to escape the approaching ground. As Booma slams into the unsuspecting rabbit, Duke hits the ground with as much grace as a falling fish can have. Quickly untying the rope at their feet, Duke limps over to the unknowing Booma. You could have killed me. What are you doing here? Booma asks. I was attached to your waist, Duke yells as they limp closer. Between mouthfuls of rabbit. Oh, I forgot. Did you get yourself untied? Duke sighs in exacerbation and begins heading back to the camp. By the time Duke and Booma return to the camp, the sun has come up and the rest of the party is cleaning the mud off their belongings and preparing to leave. Ah, there you two are. I was wondering if you'd make it back, Gub says as he sees the parrot entering camp. This one tried to kill me. Duke threw their arms in the air and limped past the packing party to get their belongings. I didn't mean to. I forgot you were attached and I was hungry. Booma storms off and begins to finish packing. You could do nothing wrong, Booma. I'm sure Duke will see that it was an accident, Nicola said, following the grumpy owlin. At that moment, Booma coughed up a pellet. Nicola and Duke race over to the compacted vomit. I'll take that, Duke said. At the same time, Nicola said, So cool, I want it! I just want any small bones from it, they smell well, said Duke. Okay, you take the bones and I'll take the rest, Nicola said. The rest of the party watches on in disgust as the two discuss which parts of the owlin waste they wanted to take. When the party had finished packing and eaten their breakfast, and the discussion of the pellet had been put to rest, the group head out again into the swamp. The scenery has not changed. The mud and grime and slime covers every plant, rock, and party member. As they go deeper into the swamp, the day turns into a muddy mess. They notice a group of lizards, very large lizards, and they look like they're eating something big. The party stops to assess the situation. I think they're big enough to eat us, Gub says. We can take them, no problem, Praxis says, fingering his hilt. I think Gub has the right idea. They don't look friendly. Why don't we scout around and see if there's a way to get around them? Without waiting for the party to agree, or to figure out who's going to go scouting, Duke takes off into the swamp. their iridescent scales vanishing somehow in the stinky gloom. Well, it looks like Duke made our decision for us, Booma said. Hopefully they don't get caught. It will be hard for me to sneak by, said Nicola. I squeak a little. Can someone help me wax my joints so I'm not so loud? He pulls out a jar out of his pack and holds it aloft. Sure. Booma grabs the wax and starts to apply it to the back of Nicola's knees and elbows, while Nicola tackles the front. Duke, with precision, makes their way through the swamp toward the lizards. As they approach, they see that the 5 lizards are large enough to ride. Should one be silly enough to want such a mount? And they appear to be eating the bodies of 6 well-armored men. You can see their weapons and adventuring packs strewn through the mud, mingled with bits of chewed-on armor and some dismembered limbs. Feeling like they'd seen enough of the carnage, Duke looks around for an easy path around the lizards. There seem to be some hills to the south that the party can duck behind as they pass. If they keep their heads low, the lizards would never know they were near, especially since they were happily munching away and snapping at each other. A few minutes pass and Duke emerges from the swamp. Well, they were eating a party of well-armored men. I think our best bet is to head more to the south. That should get us past the whole mess. We can duck behind those hills so the lizards can't catch sight of us. Sounds like a plan, Booma said. The group heads off to the small hills as the sun climbs higher into the sky. The sweltering heat again slows their progress, and the mud sticking to their boots tries to keep them in place. As the sun begins its descent, and the party starts to believe that the swamp will never end, they come across a clearing. Still covered in mud, but the slime has lessened here. Unfortunately, the clearing has some inhabitants already, probably seeking the same respite from the slime as the party. Ahead of them, they see what appear to be very large bipedal frogs. They are clothed in leather armor and have tents arranged around a campfire. The smell of something delicious is permeating the stink of the swamp. They look like fine chaps, says Doob. But the swamp has been dangerous, and people who live in the swamp are probably also dangerous, Gubb added. We can take 'em, Craxus said again, fingering his sword. Why do you always want to fight? Booma asked. It isn't always the best move. We aren't the best fighters. It's in my blood. Fighting is what I do, Craxus replies simply and shrugs his shoulders. Maybe I can convince them that I'm a traveling salesman. If they don't attack me, I'll introduce the rest of you, Duke suggests. It's as good a plan as any, Nicola added. We should spread out for an ambush in case they start to attack. That's a good plan. I'll take Craxus around the back with me, and Booma can take to the sky, maybe hide in those trees over there, and Nicola, you can stay here at the front in case you squeak. Gubb ironed out the plan, and the party went their separate ways. Duke gave the rest of the party time to get themselves situated and marched over to the frogs, chest up, arms holding their round stomachs, appearing friendly. My good men, he hollers from a distance. I come bearing goods for sale for the weary traveler. Rope, rations, blankets, baskets, dinner boxes for days. The frog people turn to look at the merchant, confusion clear in their faces. But Duke plays his part well, and after a tense moment, they raise their arms in greeting. Well, howdy. We don't get to see too many merchants up around these parts. What brings you out to our beautiful swamp? What appears to be the leader of the group asks. Well, my friends and I are traveling to that blue storm. We've stopped by to pick someone up there. But because of the limited travel, I thought I'd scope this place out to see what its trade needs are. Yeah, we don't get much travelers through here. It's a rough neighborhood, if you catch my meaning. So who are you fine gentlemen? Duke asked. Well, we're the Bollywogs. We've been living in these here swamps for generations. The humidity is good for the skin. Now you mentioned some friends. The Bollywood wog tilted their head in expectation. Oh yes, this is Nicola, Francisco, and Booma. Duke waves at the rest of the party, telling them it's okay to come over. Well, now that we're friendly like this is Draculus, Bluff, Zin, Nap, and I'm Randolph. Nice to meet you, fine folks. If you'd like, we have some fine stew going. It'll be a small meal. We weren't expecting such a large crowd. The rest of the party approaches and introductions are made. Handshakes are given, and small talk commences. I've got some food so we can add to the stew to make it go further, Booma says. That's mighty nice, thank you, says Zin. I'll toss it right in. Have you seen any birds around? I haven't seen too many of them, Nicola asked the Bollywogs. We've seen some birds around here. They're usually hiding in the bushes or a tree, if they can find one with enough cover, Nap replies. We can keep an eye out for you. No bother at all, Nap adds. I'd like that. I love birds. They're really fascinating. What type of birds have you seen? Nicola continues his conversation with Nap and Dracius, and the rest of the party passes out stew and sits down to eat. So, you're going looking for someone in the storm, Randolph asks. Craxus replies, Yeah, her name is Balbara. She was kidnapped from Urzin a few days ago, and the town guards asked us to go find her. Between bites of stew, Craxus told their story. All we know is that she's some powerful sorceress and the town wants her back. Now you see here, we were meant to meet up. I might be able to help y'all. So, I just so happen to know about Balbara. There's a turtle, goes by the name of Gar, who roams these here swamps, who talks about her often. In the morning, I'll have my team go with y'all and we'll help you find him. Gar should be able to take you to your destination, Randong said. We probably won't need you to come all the way with us, Craxus begins. Never you think too hard on it, sir. We're between jobs as it is, and I'll be guessing right if I thought you'd come across some hard times when you get to that storm. You see, it's not just a storm, it's a magical storm over a garrison. And there are darn near 50 men stationed there. Y'all gonna need some help, all the help you can muster. And my men and Gar will be perfect addition to y'all's group. Randolph got up to put his soup bowl away. That sounds like a perfect plan, Gub says. It would be great to get all the help we can. Then it's agreed upon. Let's get our rest. We've got a turtle to find in the morning, Randog said and moved to his bedroll. After much conversation and some small completed transactions from Duke, the sky begins to darken. The party sets teams up for watch and everyone settles in for the night. With the Bollywogs and Nicola keeping watch, the evening is uneventful. Duke opted for staking their rope into the ground instead of a person, taking better precautions after the previous evening's incident. Opted for staking their rope into the ground instead of a person, taking better precautions after the previous evening's incident. The occasional buzz of a mosquito harasses the adventurers, and a cool breeze tickles the occasional feather. Even the stench seems to have calmed in the balmy evening air. Roll me a d20 and give me a perception check. You see a small blue light dancing around Craxus. The blue light is dancing across his face, swirling around his sleeping head. It looks as if the light is whispering something to him, gently coaxing his sleeping mind. All right, so that puts us at just about an hour. We'll pick this back up next Sunday. I'll make a note so I can pick it up right from where we were. But you all have an absolutely beautiful day.